process of moving to Agile is about taking big things, breaking them into small things, minimizing the dependencies, and then orchestrating the dependencies that exist. And I'm going to make the argument over time that it's the same for digital transformation. Like anything that we want to do with new digital products, new digital strategies, digital channels, digital innovation is going to require these same kinds of loosely coupled independent teams, typically using Agile, but not required, but typically using Agile. It's the decomposition of the big things into the small things that matters. It's not that we're not going to do big products, and it's not that we're not going to have large companies. But when we talk about descaling an organization, what we're really exploring is the idea of how do I create entities within the enterprise that are loosely coupled from the other entities within the enterprise. So if I'm dealing with something at the team level, and I'm talking about Scrum teams, I want to have teams that have few, if any, dependencies between them. If I'm up in the scaled areas, then I'm talking about having maybe value streams that don't have dependencies between them, or I'm talking about work groups that don't have dependencies between them, or product areas that don't have dependencies between them. But when you start getting into really, really large organizations, there is, there's dependencies everywhere. Right?
Almost everything that gets in the way of doing what we want to do is because of the dependencies, right? Why can't I form a complete cross-functional team? Well, I don't have enough people of the right kind of skill set. Well, that's a dependency. I have a legacy technical architecture that won't let me deliver incrementally and iteratively. That's a dependency. I have 3 or 4 systems that all have to work together to create some sort of integrated deliverable. That's a dependency. Right? Dependencies are everywhere, right? And so too much work in process is kind of a dependency. I have to get this done before I can get this done before I can get this done, right? Dependencies are just absolutely everywhere. And dependencies, to me, are fundamentally what get in the way of creating the teaming strategies that give us really the Agile secret sauce. Right? Almost everything that we mess up in Agile is some form of capitulation to a dependency we can't resolve.
So when we talk about transformation strategy, what we are fundamentally talking about is how do we systematically over time start to create this notional idea of a decoupled enterprise.
There's like 3 different ways to kind of think about Agile and Agile transformation. And the first one, like I said, that I encountered was this idea of practices. And so there's a lot of value in the practices of Scrum and XP and SAFe and all those kinds of things, but you're making like a jump, right? When you, like, we'll just pick on Scrum for a minute. You're making a jump that if you say, we're gonna start doing Scrum, the Scrum Master's gonna remove the impediments, what you're kind of saying is that the organizational structures and all the different things as the Scrum Master removes the impediments will kind of just happen. And in practice, I think we find that often that doesn't play out the way we want it to, okay? And then, so what we kind of do next is we go to this idea of, well, if those leaders would just trust us, if those leaders would just empower us, if they would just, if we could just adopt an Agile mindset, then that would create the space for the practices to work. If we want to create space for an Agile culture to emerge, we have to kind of put the stuff around that team in place so that people can trust each other, so that people can inspect and adapt, so that they can develop relationships. If I get the systems right, I get the practices right, I create the space for the culture to emerge. And so my general belief is, if I have a view of what this should look like, and I design it so that I can deal with all of the various competing cultural attributes and all the various personalities and needs and everything. And I'm telling you, you can with Agile if you open up your purview of what Agile is, right? That's how you get to this point of being able to do a transformation, overcome resistance, change the culture over time.
The idea here is that there is no way from here to there if we are only thinking about agile practices or we are only thinking about agile mindset. Because at the end of the day, those practices and that mindset is going to come head on into like the skeletal system, the infrastructure of that organization. The way that it is structured, the way that it is governed, the way that it is measured is going to be totally orthogonal to the practices and cultures that you're trying to get to. So you can start with practices and cultures and try to back your way into the structural elements. But what we believe is that if you start with the structural elements, you take the big things, you systematically break them into smaller things. You work on reducing batch size and breaking dependencies and increasing local autonomy and giving those smaller objects some degrees of freedom. Through that core transformation effort, you get the fundamental underpinnings of digital transformation. You get the fundamental underpinnings of the composable enterprise. You get the fundamental underpinnings of the product-driven organization. You want to do product innovation, you want to do digital, any of this stuff, it goes way better if you have an organization that's just built natively to support it.